Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm still recovering from the insanity that we saw from the pre-classic today. It is now very late in the evening of July 5th. This video is going to be a little different because I've got all the results up on my laptop here. Shout out Throwtown Ramona. And we are just going to be ripping through these events because I want to get this up early in the morning and I want to do as little editing as possible. So we're kind of just going to try and one take this thing and we'll see how it comes out. Today is a day that very well may go down in history as one of the best days the sport of throwing has ever seen. We had men's and women's hammer, men's and women's discus, men's and women's shot put. The winning marks in those competitions today in Hayward: 83-16, 78-88, 70-97, 70-68, 22-48, 20-94. Just an unbelievable day. And the fields were deep, and there was excellent competition top to bottom, and there is so much to talk about. We're going to start with the men's hammer, where it's Rudy Winkler, the American, defending his home turf, defending the fabled Hayward hammer cage. And he goes 83-16 in round 3. Let's set this one up a little bit. So, Rudy's had a good season, over 80 a couple times, either 81-08, I believe, at Drake Relays, which was his best throw since 2021. And then he had gone over to Europe, and he's competed well there. He's gotten some good marks, placed well in some really good fields, hasn't thrown in about a month now. Comes to Hayward, a ring he's very comfortable in, a ring where he threw the American record in 2021. And first throw, looking good, 79-37. Second throw, not quite there, fouls it. And then that third throw, just a bomb, a beautiful, beautiful throw, 83-16. And it was this was the very first event of the day. So it was before the actual, broadcast program started. So I paid $13 to watch Rudy Winkler throw the hammer today. And it was well worth it. And just, hammer's an event that even when it's at Diamond Leagues and stuff, you never can really watch the competitions. And so just actually seeing, obviously I saw in Paris, Ethan's 84-meter throw to win. I saw that live. But seeing this one and just, it goes out, it's good based off his reaction. And then you just see it plop down that far beyond the 80-meter line. Was just so exciting. Rudy now moves into the top 20 in world history. It's he tacks on 40-plus centimeters onto his American record, his PB. First American man over 83. Takes the world lead and ended up taking down Ethan Katzberg, who, he threw 81-73, and it really is a testament to how good Ethan is, that 81-73 is kind of a marker, just okay. At this point for him, that's a mark that it doesn't move you that much necessarily. And, it was a good series. He opened up at 80, and it looked like it was going to be a typical Ethan Katzberg day. And largely, it was a typical Ethan Katzberg day. He just got beaten by the best day of Rudy Winkler's life. But yeah, Ethan goes 81-73 then in round 5. And then round 6, 81-10. So 3 throws over 80, 2 over 81. Ethan still got it. And I said coming into this one, in my preview video, I talked about how, Ethan, someone could beat Ethan, and I'd still say Ethan is the favorite for Worlds in Tokyo, and I stand by that. even though, Rudy just took the world lead from him, just had this massive breakthrough, and Rudy has been throwing so well this year. But what it comes down to for me right now is Ethan, the last 2 years, has shown he can throw his very best when it matters most. He can throw his best in a global championship. Rudy, he's been on the scene a lot longer than Ethan. Like, he was in Rio, and he has performed well at Worlds. Like, he's placed well. He's made a ton of finals. I think his best finish was maybe fifth, but he hasn't necessarily been at his very best in these competitions. And so that's just a separator where, like, Ethan's best is already kind of better than everyone else's. Rudy's starting to close that gap in a way we haven't seen anyone else be able to do in the last year and a half. Um, but I just, when, like, maybe Rudy's going to keep doing this. And then by the time we actually get to Tokyo in, what is it, 2.5 months, basically, little over 2 months, maybe my opinion will change by then. But for now, I'm thinking that I still lean Ethan. Actually, I'm very excited. On Saturday, the 11th, I believe, is the LA Throws Cup down in Los Angeles.
Saturday is the 12th, Friday is the 11th. Meets on Friday.
The throws meet is on Friday, as I've just been told by my producer, Audrey. Um, and so we're going down there, and Rudy's going to be there. Janae Casanavoy's going to be there. Reggie Jagers is going to be there. I believe they're the only three that have officially been announced yet, but they announced Rudy like 2 or 3 days ago, and then he comes out and throws 83. So I don't know. Maybe I'll get to see an 80-plus meter throw in person next week. That'd be pretty sweet. So really good days for Ethan and Rudy. Rudy, obviously, it builds a lot of confidence for me and him. Even with the loss, doesn't really change the way I feel about Ethan whatsoever. Mihailo finished third in this one. He threw a really good mark in round 6, 79-27. Danny Haw, another big sixth round throw for him. He throws 78-55, which was a season's best by about 1.5 meters. So, one of the things I talked about in the preview was like the Americans need to defend their home turf, and they did just that. They did just that today because really, really strong days, obviously out of Rudy, and then Danny had his best day of the season. You can't ask for much more than that. Wojciech Nowitzki finished fifth in this one, throwing 77.03. That made me so happy because this was like a 5-meter season's best for him. He'd only competed twice. He hadn't competed in about a month, I believe, and he was dealing with some injuries. I think he even had surgery in the offseason, maybe. And so just seeing like he's still got it, and he put together a pretty good series where he went 74 high, 75 high, and then 77, and then had a couple 75s to close it out. Like, that's a good series for a guy who, like, he's a little older now, coming off an injury, and he's still putting together a series like that at a competition of this magnitude. That was really exciting to see. So yeah, he's definitely, if he can keep building off this, like 77 probably isn't going to be enough to, I'm not say probably, barring a disaster, won't be enough to contend for medals come Tokyo. But if he keeps building back from this and gets a little more into the shape that we know he can be and he has been in the past, absolutely, he's going to be a medal contender once again. I completely forgot for a second there about my vow to try and do this in one take. So there will be a cut there. Hopefully, fingers crossed, there won't be another cut for the rest of the video. So let's get into some men's discus now. Mikola Selekna announced his transfer to Oregon a couple days ago. He's in his home ring now, competing in just a base black Nike kit. And he comes out here, and he was throwing like he felt disrespected 3 weeks ago at NCAAs. And he comes out 69-79 in the first round. That would have won the competition. But then he proceeds to have 4 more throws over 69 meters, 2 of them over 70, including 70-97 in round 2 to take the win, and then round 5 was 70-64 to back that up. So, like, he's back. He had his typical once a season weird, bad competition in early to mid June, as we've seen the last couple years. And then he comes back and just starts smoking people again. And this was an excellent field. Ralford Mullings, Daniel Stahl, Roger Stona, some of the best Americans. And Miklas just made very light work of them. Ralford did finish second, which against Stahl and Stona is an impressive finish, but also with the form he showed he was in at NCAAs, like, it's not really surprising. Ralford he went 68-98 in round 5. So now I mean, he won Jamaican champs at like 65 high, but he didn't need much more than that. So but in his last 2, like, super competitive meets he's been in, he's gone 69, what was it, 31 he threw at NCAAs, and now 2 centimeters under 69, so he's cementing himself as a legitimate medal contender for Tokyo, especially with with Roger not being there. Roger finished, 4th today, throwing 65-62, and it was, like, a consistent series for him with a couple over 65 meters, but nothing too special. And that's something where you kind of like need to think about with Roger is obviously he threw 70 meters in Paris, but like that is the best throw of his career by like a meter and a half, I think. So realistically, like on a competition to competition basis, Roger is more of like a 68-meter thrower, 68 mid, as opposed to a consistent 70-meter thrower like you'd expect or you'd see from guys like Alekna, Stahl, Denny, Che. So like the expectations in comparison to his PB should probably be a little lower for Roger than kind of I guess the typical standard of an Olympic champion. I don't really know if that makes sense, but like 65 is a really solid mark. And then Daniel Stahl finished third in between Ralford and Roger, throwing 68-59. Pretty consistent series for Daniel with a lot of his worst throw was what 65-38 in round 1 it looks like, and then he had another 67, one that was 66-99. So Daniel, traveling, he had to do more travel to get to this meet than I think anyone else. Because he's the only one. I think Roger's been back over training in Arkansas for a little bit longer than because he hasn't thrown in a while, as opposed to Daniel, who's still been very busy on the European circuit. So Daniel probably had a big travel day coming into this one, and he still performed. And so, yeah, he's cementing that he's still a definite medal contender. And unfortunately, as I kind of predicted, the 3 Americans in this field, Sam Mattis, Andrew Evans, and Reggie Jagers, did finish in the final 3 positions. Sam was on top at 65.06. Andrew was in 6th, second among the Americans at 63.96. And then Reggie, tough day for Reggie. He only gets 1 legal throw on the board, and it was 56.79. For Andrew, I think that's his 5th competition of the year, so I believe that gets him qualified for Worlds as long as he, finishes top 3 at USAs, which he should be able to manage. So I still feel like Sam is a pretty safe bet. Like 65 meters is a good mark, especially with like the landscape of USAs. Like that's a mark that will probably get you on Team USA. And then it's just going to be interesting to see how those 2 spots kind of behind Sam shake out, I guess. I think there are some more US based competitions with discus fields, like the LA Throws Cup, before we get to US champs to maybe clear that kind of murky picture up a bit. But until then, we'll see. But I mean, this competition was it was a good one. And it was fun seeing Miklas get a little bit of revenge. All right, I'm gonna remember that I want to do this in one take. or I guess like 2 takes now, so I'm not gonna stop, and we're gonna move on to women's hammer now, which this field was maybe the best field, um, in history, and maybe the best field of, like, the whole meet, because you just had all of the, like, medal contenders, essentially. Aside from maybe, like, if you wanna say Celia Kosonen and Krista Turvo are medal contenders, sure, I'll give you that, they weren't here, but you had the top 5 Americans and Cameron Rogers and Anita Wlodarczyk, and they delivered. They delivered. Cameron Rogers takes the win here, her second, pre-classic victory in a row, going 78-88 this time in round 4. It's like a 26 centimeter PB for her, leapfrogging Rachel Richardson, who finished Rachel finished 7th in this one. The foul bug bit her again. She had one legal mark, 72-30. Still something to kind of keep an eye on, I guess, moving towards USA is slightly concerning there. But back to Cam, I mean, what more can you say about her? She just delivers. And there hasn't really been a time over the last 2 years where you've needed her to come through big and she hasn't. I mean, the series she put together was really strong. 2 more throws over 76, and then a 74 high and a 75 mid. Like, that's a championship level series, obviously from a world and Olympic champion. And I said coming into this one, I'm like, women's hammer and men's shot, I believe is what I said, were the 2 events where in my mind, the winner of that immediately becomes the favorite for Worlds in Tokyo. You can argue Cam was already the favorite because she's obviously the defending world and Olympic champion who's had a really good season up to this point. But I think this like cements it. And with Cam, it's like she obviously had thrown 78, 62, I believe in 2023. So like she's had a really big mark before, but those are marks that you've seen Brooke and Deanna hit kind of with like regularity. When you see those like 77 highs, 78s, even you saw Rachel Richardson get in there. Janae's thrown that far before, but it's not something you had seen like all the time from Cameron. And even with like the way that Worlds and the Olympics had kind of shaken out the last 2 years, I I don't know if I'll double check this, I guess, while I'm editing, but I think like her winning marks weren't anything like extraordinary. Um, but to see her just come out and throw down a mark like this against this field and like she needed all of that because Brooke Anderson in round 6 gave it everything she had. Brooke was leading throughout most of the first couple rounds. And then Cameron passed her in round 4. Brooke comes back 76-95 in round 2, coming up just short of, well, like over a meter and a half short, almost 2 meters short. So more than just. But she comes up short of moving back ahead of Cam. And like, it's still a really good day for Brooke. I mean, she had 3 throws over 76, a 75 high, a 75 mid, and then a 74. So she had like 6 legal throws. For her, where obviously getting onto Team USA was a problem last year. Just having this clean of a series while also coming through with really good marks, that is exciting to see. That is encouraging to see because for all of the like Kim doesn't really have to worry about Canadian championship. Well, obviously not because she has the bye. So she doesn't have to worry about qualifying. For all the Americans, they have a huge step and a huge competition at the beginning of August just to move on to the real big competition in the middle of September. And so for Brooke, where, like I said, that was an issue last year, I think this can build a lot of confidence for that one. She's going to be back in the same cage where she doesn't necessarily have the best memories in recent history, but this one, she puts together a really good, really clean series, and if she can replicate this again and honestly, like, 76.95, she probably won't need that much, especially because, if Rachel continues with her foul troubles and Annette's another one where, like, she's just clutch, and, like, her PB is, like, 75.49, so she hasn't necessarily had, like, a crazy big mark in her career or anything, but she's clutch and she delivers when it matters most, so I still trust her to come through with something really good at USAs, but for Brooke, like, she might not need 76.95 to make it onto the US team, when next month rolls around, but it's exciting to know that she can do something like this. I'm sure it's exciting for her to know and just to like obviously she knows she can do this, but for her to just see in practice, okay, I can come to this stage against really good competition with probably not as much pressure per se as there will be at USA's, but, like, just as many, like, eyes on the competition, you're going up against a lot of the same women you will be at USA's. You can put together a series like this, that's gotta be encouraging for Brooke. So I was really even though she didn't come away with the win here, I was really excited to see that for Brooke. Deanna finished 3rd at 75.35. Rough-ish start for Deanna with 69s on her first 2 throws. But then she had back-to-back 75s in 3 and 4, so she's still Deanna Price. She's still super consistent, super reliable, super good. I I feel stupid because coming into this one, I was like, "Oh, like, it's I mean, I think Anita Wlodarczyk is probably gonna finish last in this field, like, that's crazy." I'm an idiot. Anita Wlodarczyk threw a meter and a half season's best. Well, first she threw like a 70-meter season's best in round 1, and then she throws like a meter and a half season's best in round 2 to go 74.70. She finishes 4th. She beats Janae Casnavoid, who finished 5th, and like 74.18, that's a good mark for Janae, and it was a consistent series for her where all of her other throws were 72 mid to high. So you'll take that from Janae, and then she came through with that 74 in round 6. But for Anita, like, the woman turns 40 next month, and she just threw 74.70. Like, what the heck? She's absolutely incredible. Um, and like she's getting better and better every meet. And it's like the further removed she gets from the injuries she had to deal with in 2022, like, it's just gonna keep progressing this way for her, it feels like, and so, all I'm gonna say is, like, as long as nobody tries carjacking her again this year, or if they do, as long as she doesn't try and, like, citizens arrest them, she's throwing 77 by the time September rolls around. Calling it right now.
Can I get context on that?
Yeah, so in 2022, Audrey just asked for context on that statement. In 2022, Anita Wlodarczyk, she saw her car was getting robbed, and so then she chased the car thief down,
That's badass.
and she, like, ran after it is badass. She ran after him, she chased him down, and then she, like, absolutely obliterated, like, her quad or something. Like, either her quad or her hamstring got, like, absolutely horribly torn. Yeah, and, like, she was coming like, she won the Olympics in 2021, and then, like, she was still throwing unbelievably well in 2022, like, she opened at, like, 78 meters or something. And then that happens, and 2023, she just wasn't quite the same. 2024, she was building back throughout the whole year, and now this year, like, things are looking scary. So, as long as nobody messes with Anita Wlodarczyk's car and her thighs stay intact, she's gonna be dangerous is what I'm thinking. Um, Let me get some water real quick because 'cause I've been yapping it for a while. Maybe I should do videos with no cuts more often. This is kind of fun. I also think it's now 11:45, which means I've been recording for like 25 minutes already, and I'm halfway through the events. All right, women's shot now. All right, I fell into the trap of approaching this competition as just like, oh, someone's gonna throw 21. And nobody threw 21. Chase Jackson threw 2094 in round three, 1 centimeter off her like week old American record from Ironwood. But that's still a ridiculous mark. That's still so crazy. And then the series she put together, she had another throw over 20 at 2034, and then 1989, 86, and a pair of 1939s to bookend it in rounds 1 and 6. So it's a much better series for her than she had at Ironwood, even if she was a centimeter behind. Um, and Chase, like, she just is unstoppable right now. And like she was going up against Sarah Mitten for the first time in a while and Jessica Schilder. And it just the Chase Jackson train just kept rolling. And it's so much fun to watch. And like 2024 was a really unfortunate year for her because I think a lot of people forget that at World Indoors last year, like she really messed up her hip, I think in pre-meet, like the day before the competition, or maybe it was even in warm-ups, like 10 minutes before the competition. Um, and like she still managed a bronze there. And then obviously we know what happened at the Olympics. So the way that she's just come out and attacked this season, and it's just putting together a season that we haven't seen since like prime Valerie Adams is unbelievable. It's so much fun to watch. But Chase throwing 2094 realistically wasn't even the story of this competition because the story of this competition was 5 women over 20 meters. Sheesh. 5 women over 20 meters. Sarah Mitten went 2039 in round two. Jada Ross, my GOAT, 2013 in round two. She tacks on 12 centimeters to her PB from last year. It's her second time in her career over 20 meters. And then she also threw 20 meters on the dot in round three. So coming off of Ironwood, with her coming back to her home ring, I was like, I know something special is in the works. I know her and Coach Blue got something cooking for this weekend. And I was right, which is good because I'm not often right about things. But I was right about Jada Ross. She threw 2013. It was so much fun to see. Does she leapfrog Maggie Ewan in the Team USA power rankings now? That's a difficult question to answer. I think I need to see one more because, like Maggie, she finished sixth in this one, but still threw 1971. Backed it up with a 1927. So Maggie still threw really well. And Maggie's been throwing really well all season. Jada's had 2 good meets. They've been 2 really good meets in a row. I think if Jada gets a third competition where she looks like this form, the same, I mean, this was even obviously a level up from what we saw in Ironwood. But if she can show similar form for a third meet in a row, that I think will be what it takes for me to give her the edge over Maggie. Um, so yeah, really good, exciting day for Jada throwing 2013. Really good, exciting day for Miss Madison Lee Weshie throwing 2006. The Olympic silver medalist breaks 20 for the first time in her career. Tacks 20 centimeters onto her PB. And it's not the prettiest series for her necessarily. Like 1923 was her next best throw, and then she was in the 18s for her other 3 marks, but she got the one that counted and made it count. And so, yeah, 2006, like, mm, when you think about the medal picture for Tokyo, it's hard to kind of put anyone outside of, like, the big 3 of Chase Jackson, Sarah Mitten, and Jessica Schilder, who finished 5th here today, throwing 20.03. It's hard to find anyone to kind of break up that trio. Um, Yemi Ogunleye, the Olympic champion, not her best day, throwing 18.83 and finishing 9th. She's thrown 20.27 already this year, and obviously she can be in that kind of form. She's a really good championship performer. But yeah, like the women who the women who will probably medal is those 3, is Chase, Sarah, and Jessica. So, probably will medal as a small group. Could medal is a much larger group that includes, like, Chase, Yemi, Maddie or no, not Chase, what am I talking about? Jada, Maddie, Yemi, Maggie. Like, there's a lot of women that could find their way onto the podium if things go haywire like they did last year. And for Maddie, this is just kind of cementing it now in a way that, breaking 20 meters for the first time, and in a way she hadn't really done before, despite the fact that she already has an Olympic silver medal to her name. And the thing that I think is most exciting about this is knowing the kind of championship performer that Maddie is, because World Indoors this year, I think, broke a streak of, it was something like 6 straight global championships, indoors or out, where Maddie had thrown a PB. And so, like, she always, well, I guess aside from World Indoors this year, she always brings it when the lights are the brightest, when the moment requires it. And so now that, like, her baseline, or, like, I guess her regular season level is above 20 meters, the thought of that gets me super excited about where she could end up being a little over 2 and change months down the line when we get to Tokyo. That's a really fun thing to think about. Other kind of results from this, Gongli Zhao, 1922, doesn't move me that much. Better than she has been throwing, but not a season's best. And then Fanny Roos continues just solid form at 1927, but with, I've said all year, like, Fanny could be like an outside medal contender just with the way she's been throwing, but with 5 women over 20 today, like, it's clear there's like a first class, which is Chase, Sarah, and Jessica. And then there's a second class, which is kind of the women I mentioned, the ones that, like, could maybe win a medal. And it feels like Fanny is just kind of a step below them right now. So, like, she's putting together a great season. Like, I don't want that to go unnoticed, but medal contention is probably not something fully on the radar for her right now. And with that, we move to women's disc, I believe, and I need more water. Ooh, throat's getting dry. What am I talking about? Okay. Women's discus. Val Allman makes it 26 meets in a row. 70-68. Gee, 3 throws over 69. So she opened with 69-48. Right off the bat, she goes, This is Val's house. She didn't leave anything up to chance like she had in her last 2 Diamond Leagues, where it took some late round heroics for her to take the win. She just gets the job done quickly. Like, 69-48, her opener would have won by 1.5 meters. And then she goes 70-68 in round 4 to win by almost 3 meters. It's her third time over 70 this year. It's her third straight, I think third straight. I can't remember back to 2023, but I know last year at trials in qualifying and in the final, she broke 70 on like back to back days, I think it was. And then she throws 70-68 here. So, like, pretty exciting to think about what she'll throw at US champs. And yeah, I mean, Val's just the best in the world. There's not much more, like, I don't know, hyperbole or like, there's not many more takeaways from this meet that I haven't already had before in terms of Val. Someone I do have new takeaways about, though, is the NCAA champion, Sierra Jackson, making her pro debut 67-82 to finish second in basically like a world championship final field, minus Bin Feng basically is kind of the only like major name missing, I think. But yeah, like 67-82, that is a mark. But she did it in a very Sierra Jackson way where she fouled her first 3 throws, and then her 4th throw is 67-82, and then she fouled rounds 5 and 6, which that's kinda like Sierra's MO is foul issues, and that's hurt her a lot at the NCAA level, at regionals, and at nationals in the past, and even at nationals this year. I think her first throw, which it was a good one, championship record, won her the NCAA title. I'm pretty sure that was her only legal throw of that series. So, she did it again. Like, if you're only gonna get one legal throw per competition, might as well make it this good. This was 2 meters on the dot, 2 meters further than what she threw at NCAAs. And so Sierra, like, it's interesting, and Sierra's chances to make the US team kind of link with Jaden Ulrich's performance here, where she threw 62-15, and finished in 8th, and, like, that's 62 is a solid mark for Jaden, but I know it's not where she'd necessarily want to be, and she's got a month to kind of get right, I guess, before trials because NCAAs obviously didn't go her way. And then this one, like, the mark is decent, but even in a field as good as this one, I doubt she wants to be finishing in 8th. And when you get to USA's, like, there were 3 Americans ahead of her because Loggy finished 6th, 64-94. Another solid mark from Loggy. Good response to what she was able to do in Ironwood last week. And so there are 3 Americans that finished ahead of Jaden. Loggy has the bye, but then Val and Sierra finished ahead of her. And you also have Veronica Fraley, who threw 64 in Ramona. You have Gabby Jacobs, who threw 60, or not in Ramona, in Ironwood. You have Gabby Jacobs, who threw 65 high at Ironwood. And you also have Erica Beistel, who's been throwing really well. And so she's already, just from the Americans that were here, Jaden's already on the chopping block for a spot on Team USA. And it's only going to get harder when they come back for nationals and she's going against the full force of the US. So that's kind of something to keep an eye out for Jaden. But like for Sierra, this has gotta, I don't know what her schedule is going to look like now before USA's, but a competition like this I think she's competed at USA's in the past, but like this is a level up from a really good USA's field to like an excellent international field. And clearly she handled herself pretty well and came away with a really good mark. So I'm excited to see what kind of confidence this can instill in Sierra moving into USA's now and then see kind of how that competition shakes out. Moving away from the Americans, Sandra Elkasevich finished third here in 66.97, almost a 2-meter season's best. And then she had two more throws over 66, which was a barrier she hadn't touched yet this year. Her season's best coming in was 65.03. So for Sandra, like, you absolutely love to see this because she's one of the best in history. And so when she's, God, how old is Sandra Elkasevich now? I think she might be like 36 or 37. So like Anita, like she's getting up there in age, but she's still just bringing it. Like this was probably the biggest competition of the year so far, and she delivered in a way that she hadn't yet this year. So I'm very excited to see that. It just adds to the intrigue of how exciting theoretically the race for silver and bronze behind Val is going to be when we get to Tokyo. You're into Sandra's 35. My producer Audrey is helping me out again. If Mrs. Elkasevich, if you see this, I'm very sorry for aging you 1 or 2 years. Urinda Van Klinken finished fourth, throwing 66.19. And I saw like a couple minutes before I started recording, she posted on her Instagram story something that was like, just when you thought the frustration couldn't get any worse. And she's been talking like all year about how frustrated she is with her throw. And I'm just so curious if she's frustrated with 66.19, how dangerous she's going to be when she's not frustrated. And like I can kind of understand it as like in 2022, I think it was 2022, when she threw 70. And then that's just a mark that now 3.5 years on, she hasn't really approached yet. So like I can understand the frustration from that point. I can understand the frustration of like thinking, I'm better than this. 66 isn't a mark that I should be satisfied with. And that just, it gets me excited about, because I don't think like, I don't know if she actually does still work with Coach Blue or not. I'm not sure. But I doubt that Urinda would have an unrealistic expectation in her head of what she can do. So, like, I don't think that the frustration and thinking, like, she should be throwing farther than 66, I don't think that's necessarily unfounded. And so I assume she's seeing things in practice, in training, that's like something bigger is there. And it feels like she's just clawing at it. She's gone, her past two Diamond Leagues now have both been over 66. And then she threw a shade under 65 to win at the European Team Championships. And so I'm just, like, every competition she's in now, I'm just, like, locked in on her, usually just on the live results page. But I'm just so curious to see when she's going to have that throw that finally breaks that frustration, which I hope is coming soon. All right, we are on to the final event on the docket now, and golly, this men's shot put competition was historic. I said in my preview, 22 meters came late this year. It was Leo Fabry throwing 22.31 in early June was the first 22-meter throw of the year, and it was the latest first 22-meter throw since 2011, I believe. And then Peyton threw 22 last weekend, and I knew with the field that would be assembled in Hayward today, I was like, the dam can be, it's officially midnight now. So I guess the field that was assembled in Hayward yesterday. I knew, like, the dam can break. And damn, the dam broke. The 22-meter barrier was broken 5 times, or by 5 men, I should say. Joe Kovacs, 22:48. Roger Steen, 22:11. Chuck Enekwechi, 22:10. So exciting for Chuck, the first African man over 22 meters. I need more water because my throat is struggling right now, guys. I'm sorry. So 22:10 for Chuck. Trip Pippery goes 22:09. His first time over 22 meters. You love to see it. And then Rajendra Campbell, the pride of Turkey, goes 22:04. Season's best for him. His first time over 22, I believe, since the Olympics. And this is the first time in history. Do you know how many shot put competitions there have been in the history of the world? It's been a lot of them. Never before has a competition seen 5 men break 22 in the same ring. That's incredible. And the 5 men that broke it, none of them were either of the 2 guys who already had broken 22 this year. So in one day, we went from having 2 guys over 22 meters to 7 men over 22 meters this year. And for Joe, it's just like you knew this was coming. Like you knew there wasn't going to be, like, there was going to be some point where Joe and Ashley decide, like, okay, the season actually starts now. This is when stuff starts to matter. And I think things are starting to matter because in round 2, Joe went 22:35, and then he pops his 22:48 in round 3. Takes over the world lead from Leo Fabry, wins his 3rd straight pre-classic, his 5th overall, and this was the other competition where I said, okay, I think the winner of this competition, or the winner of this discipline, is the favorite for Tokyo now. So I said that for men's shot put and women's hammer. And obviously with men's shot, there is a 6'7", 360 or whatever he is. There's a Ryan Krauser shaped asterisk next to that one. But of the guys that we've seen compete this year, I officially like Joe over everyone else. And I think it's completely warranted because, first of all, he just beat everyone he'd need to beat in Tokyo. He beat Peyton, who finished 6th here, throwing 21.92. Leo finished 7th, throwing 21.71. And Tom finished 8th, throwing 21.50. The top 8 were over 21.50. That's crazy. 21.92 for 6th is absurd. I'll check after I'm done recording, but I think that's the best mark for place ever for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. This might have been the deepest men's shot put competition the world has ever seen, which is just, it's not unbelievable because, like, with the quality of the men in this field, like, you should be expecting competitions like this. And it was just really exciting to see it actually play out. And for Joe, it's like, so yeah, he beat everyone he'd need to beat in Tokyo. He gets the mark. Like 22:48 is huge. And we know how much more he has in the tank. Well, maybe we don't know exactly how much more he has yet in the tank. Because of the constant rumors of Joe Kovacs practice throws. But like we know he has more distance in the tank, and he, unlike pretty much anyone else in the world can step up to the plate at a global championship. Um, let me think. Let me think. I believe he's medaled at every competition, every worlds since Beijing in 2015. That's Joe Kovacs for you. So, yeah, I don't think it's crazy to say that I think Joe Kovacs is the favorite for gold in Tokyo right now. But for Roger, he went 22-11 in round 5, and, like, it was a decent series for him up to that point, but then he just comes out and smashes it, which, like, I think it's still not this 70. I can't do meters to feet conversions in my head. I'm sorry. I still don't think it's the same as what he threw when he cleared 73 feet at the first WSPS event. Shout out to the WSPS. Um, but just a unbelievable mark. His second time over 22, tacks on 3 centimeters to his PB. For Chuck, I've been so excited with how he's been putting his season together this year, because it's not just that he's been coming out with good marks every competition, but he's been putting together really good series week after week after week. And I've said, like a couple weeks ago in This Week in Throws, I think it was after the Rome. It was no, maybe the Rabat Diamond League. Um, I said, like, with the way that Chuck is throwing, like, it looks like his baseline is where it needs to be, to where when he pops off, he's gonna throw 22. He's gonna do something huge. And he did something huge. Like I said, the first African man ever to throw 22 meters. He actually didn't have the African record coming into this one. He was second on the all-time African list. Now, obviously, he moves into first. And he's still, like, even with, he got the one where I'm, like, saying he popped off. Like, he threw 22-10, but then he backed it up with 21-76 and 21-68. So, like, especially if nobody, like, if Leo or Joe don't take their form into the stratosphere necessarily. And then, like, Peyton has shown the ability to do that as well, where, like, they could make it a situation where you need to throw 22-50 to medal in Tokyo, especially that could be even farther if Ryan is able to get healthy in time. But if they don't do that, like, Chuck is a guy that's performed really well at global championships in the past. He was 6th last year in Paris. I only know that because I checked that right before I started recording. So don't be that impressed with my ball knowledge. Um, but, like, Chuck is a guy that could be in contention for a medal now if the marks don't get too ridiculous and, like, too far out of hand. And that's really exciting because Chuck, from everything that I've seen, seems like an absolutely amazing guy. And so if Chuck somehow comes away with a medal in Tokyo, I'd be very happy. But I'm very happy regardless that he broke 22 today. I'm also very happy that Trip Hippery broke 22. He unofficially broke 22 at the first edition of the WSPS. And then his last time out, which is a competition in Italy last month, early in June, he went 21.96 for his first PB in like 4 years or something. And then he comes out this one and, like, it was 21 he threw 21.94 in round 3. And then you're like, okay, he's right there. It was 2 centimeters behind his like month-old PB. I need more water. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. Is 2 centimeters off his, like, month-old PB, and you're like, "It's there. It's their trip, and then in round 4, he gets the job done, 22:09, and then he backs it up with 21:90, like, aside from Joe, who had 3 throws over 22, and then 21:86 and 21:67, which, like, that's a series that realistically there's, I don't know, like 10 guys in the history of the world that could put together a series like that, or some that might be an exaggeration, but it's really, really good. Um, but, like, besides Joe, Tripp had the best series today. Like, 3 throws over 21-9 is very legit. And Tripp's still pretty young, um, in thrower years. So he's got room to build, and he's obviously found something that's really working for him this year, and I'm excited to see how that kind of keeps building. And then, like I said, for Rajendra, it's his first time. Like every throw over 21, the indoor season was kind of a nightmare for him. World Indoors went really poorly, and he was like, I don't think he broke 21 indoors. But then ever since they came outdoors, like the WSPS kinda rejuvenated him, it feels like. And so he competed really well in like a couple of diamond leagues and the bigger European competitions. And then he comes out to this one and like back over 22, barely the 22:04, but a strong series for him. Every other throw was over 21. So men's shot, it's just there's so many, like, question marks with Ryan not in the picture, because it basically, right now, like, frees up a medal, frees up the gold, honestly. Um, and then there's just so many guys are that haven't gotten the chance to get a global medal yet. Like, you look at these guys, Roger and Tripp got medals at World Indoors this year. But if you look outdoors, like this field, Roger, Chuck, Tripp, Peyton, none of them have world outdoor medals, or Olympics. Leo got world silver in 2023, but with the way the Olympics shook out last year, like, he's still hungry for that world title. Um, And then Tom is gonna be Tom. He's still putting together a really good season. And obviously Joe's gonna be Joe. But there's opportunities for something really cool to happen where there's so many guys that have the chance to get their first global medal. Like I said, outdoor global medal for some of these guys. And that's awesome. And that's really exciting to see because these guys deserve it. And they put in the work and they put on a really entertaining product today. And everybody put on an unbelievably entertaining product today because that is all of the throws from the 2025 50th edition of the Prefontaine Classic. This is, I think, going to end up being an hour on 6 events, which is funny because before I started recording, Chris Chavez and Mac Fleet and partially Keenan Baker, they did a Sidious Mag recap podcast that was 45 minutes covering a lot of the events from today. And so I told Audrey, I was like, all right, well, they did like 45 minutes on like 10 events or something. I got to do 50 minutes on 6 events. And I am going to blow by 50 minutes. But that's what a competition like this deserved because this was genuinely, it was stressful because they always had like, well, men's hammer was easy to keep track of because it was kind of by itself, except for the fact that they didn't show you any of round 5 because they were, or like any of round 5 or the first half of round 6 because they were too busy showing us a middle school girls 1500. So that was kind of annoying. There's something else that was really annoying, but we're not gonna get into that. Um, but So men's hammer was digestible, but then for everything else, there were like 2 throws going on at the same time, and none of them were, like, actually on the broadcast, which was beautiful chaos, but also annoying and stressful, and it felt not annoying. The part that it wasn't on the broadcast was annoying, but I was trying to, like, it was like every 5 seconds, it felt like I had to send out another tweet and be like, Joe, MF Kovacs just threw 22-35. It was a wild day. Ah, I love the throws. Today was so much fun. What if we just had the pre-classic every weekend? That's my idea for saving track and field. Forget Athlos, forget anything else. Just have every weekend be the pre-classic, and track would be the biggest sport in the world. That's my pitch. This is absolute nonsense now. If anyone is still here, I'm amazed. Um, this was honestly really fun. So let me know if you guys want to see just like unedited, uh, like rambling yap sessions like this one.
If anyone's still here, leave the nodding emoji in the comments.
I don't know how well my mic picked that up, but Audrey says, if anyone's still here, leave the nodding emoji in the comments. Um, but yeah, it is now 12:21 a.m. So I will officially say that is all I've got. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Follow the Instagram at Paulie Throws. Follow the Twitter at PHoffMahoney. I don't know if we're going to have a This Week in Throws this week because there's probably not a whole lot else to talk about. But I'll assess on like Tuesday or Wednesday and we'll see what I do about that. But for the 2025 pre-classic, it was a good one, and I will see you guys next time.